Ooh. Aloha, welcome to this week's video. So this week I'm going to be finishing up my nunchucks. Not entirely sure how tough these are going to be, but we'll find out when we get to testing them. I had to wait about 4 days, I think, maybe 5 days before I started shaping. I just needed to give that epoxy time to set where the teeth was set into place. The design I decided to do on these, I was going to make them cylindrical. I decided against that because it would remove too much material and make them too skinny. I want to keep them a little bit thicker just so they have a little bit more toughness. And so I'm doing kind of a hexagonal shape. So there'll be 6 sides. Well, actually no, I think octagonal. The 8 sides, but anyway, I'm doing this just because it's going to smooth off the corners, it'll clean it up and keep as much material as possible. It also makes for pretty good grip, so it's easy to hold on to, and at the same time I can smooth them down so they can slide out of your hands, but at the same time you can still grip them pretty well. I did notice while I was shaping and sanding down one of the pieces that I had this crack here. It really wasn't a crack. What it is where the initial epoxy that I poured a long time ago to make this material just didn't seep into that little crack there, and so I'm filling that in with some 5-minute epoxy. I let it sit for about an hour, and now I'm going to go ahead and just scrape that off, and I can get back into sanding. Normally I would let it sit for quite a bit longer, but it's just a small section there, and I just really was filling in that gap, and so I'm not too worried about it. I already have all the grooves cut out, and where the lashing is going to go, or not lashing, but the cordage, the paracord to connect the 2 pieces together. And so here I'm just sanding it down. I think I'm going to sand it down all the way to 320. I thought about sanding it down to 800, but I didn't really think I needed to for this piece. It's really just kind of a fun piece. The last little bit of sanding here took a little longer than I expected it to, just because the different hardness between the epoxy and the coil wood. But it worked out in the end. It looked pretty nice, and I was really excited to oil it up. I love this material. So this is from the same batch of material that I made before. And it's just the contrast between the Hawaiian coil wood and the epoxy just looks awesome. Absolutely love it. The clear epoxy that I used, I messed something up because it's not as clear as I was expecting it to be. I know it's clear because I have like leftover epoxy in the jar. You can see over there on the right hand side, and it's super clear. I think I just didn't sand it down enough. I think I needed to sand that section a little bit more so it wouldn't be as foggy. I think I have a lot of little micro scratches. They'll get filled in a little bit when I coat it, but not quite the clarity I was hoping for, and there was a lot more bubbles in there than I was expecting. Again, that was probably my fault when I poured it. Wasn't doing it right. While watching a video on someone who was retying some nunchucks back together, I noticed that the end widened, and so that's what I'm doing here. Is I'm widening this out with a step bit. I have 2 different sizes of step bit. This one here is a little bit thinner, so I use this one. I'm not going to smooth it out entirely. I'm just going to sand off any rough edges, so it'll largely keep that step bit's shape on the inside, and that's fine. I think the point of it being rounded like that is so that as you swing it around, it doesn't have any hard edges to cut into the paracord. And then I watched a really short YouTube video on how to string it together, and it's pretty simple actually. I'm not going to go through all the steps in detail because this is my first time doing this. So if you want to look it up, there's a ton of videos. There's no lack of videos. You can just YouTube any video and you'll find it. All I'm doing here is heating up. I don't have like a torch, which would be better. So I'm just using my heat gun to melt the ends of the paracord. That way they don't slide around on me. The one piece of information that I did pick from the channel that I watched, I don't know if this is accurate or not. The only research I've done is on design with regards to how they kind of look like and different connection types. But what they recommended on the video I watched was that the connection was a hand width apart. And so that's what you see me doing there, is just putting my hand in there just to verify my distance. And what's really interesting is there's actually no knot. I didn't realize that. I thought there would be a knot, but it's just tension. So it's a mixture of friction and tension that keeps it in place. So the friction of the paracord is enough that it doesn't unravel, which is kind of cool. So you pretty much just wrap it through a bunch of times and tuck it into place, and then you're done, and that's it. I did cut them down a little bit just because they were the tails were a little bit long, and so I cut them just short enough so that I could squeeze them into place. If I were to rewrap this, I'd probably have to do it again. But here is the finished piece. This is pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. This thing was a ton of fun to play around with. I don't know what I'm doing with it. I'm just having fun. I can definitely see the appeal to nunchucks. They are just a ton of fun. So there's the tiger shark teeth that I have embedded in the piece in epoxy. I am going to test it out. I got a melon and a pineapple. And I'm a little bit nervous. I think it's going to break. I think it's going to break on the connection point between the wood and the epoxy. That's where I think it's going to snap. But let's find out, shall we? I do love the contrast on the epoxy to the coil. It looks pretty awesome. I'm just having fun. I have no idea what I'm doing. So if you know how to use these, I apologize. I'm probably offending you. These are just way too much fun. So I'm just gonna hit the melon from the side and see what it does. And look. Oh, so it totally snapped, but not where I expected it to. It did some damage to the melon, which was surprising. It split that, so if you were to get hit in the head with this or in the body, it definitely hurt. I think the piece of koa that broke was just too dry. So this section here was a really dry piece of koa, and it actually broke straight down the wood. So I expected it to break along the epoxy, but it broke down a solid piece of koa, which was actually a pretty big surprise to me. I don't know the direction of the grain. It might have been perpendicular, and so it split, is what I think might have happened, rather than being horizontal. If it was horizontal, it probably wouldn't have broke like that. So it's most likely the direction of the grain. I didn't really have control of that direction, just because I mixed a whole bunch of pieces together and I didn't keep track of that when I cut it out. So here's the final piece. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix this piece and do a free giveaway. So if you follow me on my Instagram, that's where I do all my free giveaways. Go ahead and follow me there, and probably in the next month or so, maybe a little longer, I'll get this fixed and we'll have a free giveaway for this piece. Mahalo for watching, and I'll see you next time. Aloha.